Now, I would like to talk to you about something very exciting as well. Basic arithmetics. We all were taught how to add, how to multiply, how to subtract, and how to divide. But we were never told what for. And in fact, many of the things that we thought we were taught, at least that it happened in my life, were found that they were not truth. But I had to learn them because I had to sit an exam and I had to pass that exam. How many of us have gone that way? That you just memorize information and that involves formulas without the least of understandings about them, but apply the formula, get the result, and get a positive mark, and therefore you pass the exam. But how much do you know about that? Have you been able to see the whole picture? Of course not, because we're not taught that way. So allow me to take you back to the basics and remind you of something called the basic 10 decimal numbers that we all use. We start from 0 because 0 is the beginning. And we got a language that we speak. It's called the language of sacred geometry. Everything has a geometrical shape. And I'm going to take you into the world of how we can use these numbers to make sense of something that we are not even aware of. But it's very important for our lives, and that is to understand how nature works. So allow me to begin. We got elements on the periodic table of elements, and these are the elements that we call atoms. But an atom is an indivisible particle, as was defined by a person called Democritus in the year 1450 before Christ. That's a long time ago. And the word atom simply means indivisible. A means without. You can say I'm aphonic, meaning no sound. I'm asymptomatic, no symptoms. And the word tomos, or tomos means division. So it means without division. But the atom has been split and divided many times over since then. So the definition is running short of its own truth. But what an atom is an entity that until we name it, it's simply that, an entity. And we name it according to something that we studied in chemistry called quantum chemistry or quantum numbers, quantic numbers. And you might have studied this and just passed the exam. But how much did you learn? We learned about quantum biology then. We knew about quantum chemistry there. Therefore, we use quantum numbers there, quantic numbers. And you might recall that from basic chemistry. It's in every textbook. But now we're going to have a look at how we interpret this in terms of nature. Okay, the smallest atom of all, the simplest, for not to say the smallest, is the atom of hydrogen. And hydro simply means water, and gen is the abbreviation for Genesis. So it's the beginning of water. And we know that water is made of H2O, 2 atoms of hydrogen that become a molecule by its own right, but also combined with an atom of oxygen, they form a molecule of water. Therefore, we got H2O. And most people can relate to that formula because you might have seen it somewhere. Now, I'm going to take the atom of hydrogen and we're going to put it here. Hydrogen only has 1 electron and therefore 1 proton in the nucleus. And we can abbreviate it like that. That is hydrogen. We're going to look at number 1. Number 1 is the unity. We're going to put here unity. Singularity. Okay, it's making everything from a whole to a very specific one. And one is everything, and everything is one. I'm just one body, but I'm made of many systems. We got one cell made out of many systems. We talk about cells as the fundamental unit of life, and that unit defines one. We also talk about a universe. Once again, is one verse, universe. And we can apply that to anything. But as you can see, one is made of many components, yet is singularity. Why? Because it allows all the components to come and play as one and be one. Typical example, an orchestra. You got many musicians, one conductor, and yet all of them, including the conductor, become one with the melody they are playing. And this is unification. It also means harmony. So unity allows for harmony to be established. And this is a dot. A dot, and there are dots everywhere. We find them in the universe. We can find them by looking up at the sky and looking at so many different, we call them stars. They are dots. They are energy fields. And I'm going to demonstrate this to you. But not before going to number 2. Number 2 is helium. And that's another element in the periodic table. And this allows for something we call duality. And the duality is everywhere. Up and down, yin and yang, right to left, men and women, yes and no, always, never, black and white, illness, disease, illness, health, illness. We also talk about light and darkness, darkness and light. So they are exactly the opposite to one another. And we normally refer to one to define the other, because the absence of one defines the other. How? Well, the absence of light is darkness. The absence of darkness is life. The absence of love is hate. The absence of hate is love. And we can talk about this in whatever combinations we want. The absence, day and night. The day is the absence of night. Night is the absence of day, which brings us back to light and darkness. So all these concepts are dual, and they all have a conjunction called and. And the word and, it's important because this is right and left, not right or left. Nature always chooses right and left. So we can form a union, a unity. Therefore, when we talk about our body, we normally are used to see 10 fingers, but in fact we don't have 10 fingers. We only have 5, and here they are. 5 here, 5 here. Where are the 10? That's because we got bilateral symmetry. We have a right side and a left side that combined give us our entity. We are like this. But we all have a name, don't we? The same as the atoms, they have names. And when we call an atom by its name, we are talking about a chemical element. And that's why we can call an atom with 1 electron hydrogen, an atom with 2 electrons helium, an atom with 3 electrons lithium. And that is basically depending on what is absent. What I haven't mentioned to you is that the number of electrons is conditioned to the number of protons that atoms have. But electrons can be shared with other atoms in order to fulfill their destiny, and that is to become the perfect shape, so that it allows energy to be managed in the best possible way throughout nature. And we call this the law of the octet, where every atom tends to complete 8 electrons in its utmost outer shell. And this is the reason atoms can form molecules, because they can fulfill that calling. That happens in all the atoms except for the atom of hydrogen, that instead of going to 8, it just simply wants to complete the 2, the yin and the yang, the up and the down, to have the 2 spins in one orbital. But all the rest tend to go higher than that. I'm not going to go into the chemistry because that's not the aim of this. It's just allowing you to see that what I'm saying has very solid basis on very simple concepts. And this is crucial to understand how the S-drive is able to capture information from the environment, and also from our internal environment, from the macro and the microcosmos, so that we can get a report established by whatever is happening in that point in time, space-time, that is only the here and now that matters. And that's when I take the measurement, and that's what I get. It's at that very point in time that we call the here and the now. And this is very important because everything else is changing. Nothing ever stays the same. Do you know that the Earth is moving at a speed of about 30,000 kilometers per second into space? And that makes it's a big speed for such a big planet, because we are moving far away from the center that happens to be a black hole. And the farther away we move, the spin gets a little bit faster. And therefore, if you have noticed, time is now flying. We just celebrated Christmas. We are celebrating in Asia the Chinese New Year. In no time we'll be celebrating Easter, and then we'll celebrate another holiday, and in no time, Christmas again. And it seems that the time is just flying away compared to when we were little kids, that it will take an eternity to go from one Christmas to the next. And this is not an illusion, it's actually real. We're spinning a little bit faster, so the days are getting shorter because of the speed of light, the speed of time, the speed of energy. In this matrix we call space-time, that is ruled by gravitational waves. Now let me get back to this so that we can continue and give you the relevance of this beautiful geometry into the world of the S-drive. Now we also are, therefore, because we have a duality, we got two dots. And we know from geometry, Euclidean geometry, that the shortest distance between 2 points happens to be a straight line. Therefore, this forms a line. It's one dimension. And here we're looking at the length. When I come before you, I'm coming to you in a flat screen. But the world is not flat, the world is three-dimensional. Things have volume. They are not having just height and length, but they got depth. And when that happens, this concept that was proposed in Euclidean geometry as a straight line being a succession of points, and the shortened distance among them was defined as a straight line, we now know that in the world we live in, which is in 3 dimensions, we can have a point there. In fact, I'm going to do it. 1 point there in my finger, 1 point there in that finger, and there's a straight line given by this marker. So I can say, well, that's the shortest distance between my fingers, whereas in fact it's not. Because in a 3-dimensional world, things have the ability to come together to form volume. And here I got a circumference. We saw that before. And when we have that, where is the straight line between the 2 points? The 2 points are still there in my fingers, as you can see. But now, what's the distance between these 2 points? There's still a space in between them, because they will always be space. In fact, Walter Nernst in 1913, he won the Nobel Prize in chemistry and also in physics. It was in physics. He discovered, or he knew, that the cell membrane is an electrical circuit. And when he told that to the world, everybody was shocked, because we run with electricity. And that electricity is given to us thanks to the effect of electrolytes. So when we have the same point, we got vacuum in the middle. There always will be space in the middle between things. And this is what is mind-boggling, because every single thing around us is filled with space, and nothing ever touches anything else. We need to go into the quantum world to really realize the implications of this. But most importantly, we need to look into what we see in the macro world where we are living. And as you can see, there's no distance between these 2 points, because 1 point becomes the same point. And now the only thing that conditions which is above and which is below is the spin. Because this is my left hand, and you're seeing it in your right side. I spin my left hand like this, and now what was below now is above, and what was above now is below. And things spin this way, and there's always a spin that allows for everything to go and form huge circumferences that live in the middle, something called a circle. and we can calculate those areas. And this is the beginning of the very basic science behind gravitational waves and scalar waves that we see as ripples in a water pond. I'll come back to you later with that, but at the moment, let's continue doing this, because I just want you to be aware that you need to think in 3 dimensions instead of just 2, because there is a width in everything that we see, not just the length and the height. So keeping that Euclidean principle of the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, we'll continue with this. We know that the next element is lithium. You can look this up in the periodic table of elements, and I will show you some of these examples as we edit this video, but for the time being, just keep up with me. Lithium is an element that brings a trilogy. Trilogy means 3 entities. Out of a relationship that we can establish, there is a third entity that is not there until we come together, and it's not a baby. It could be a baby, but this is not going that way. This is just coming to the point to tell you that between you and me, a third entity is born, and that is the us. And when we have that, we got something that if this is you, and this is me, we form an intersection between you and me. And we just simply have A and B, that's me, you and me, you and me. And this could be a very casual thing. In the diagrams of Ben Euler, a mathematician, we call this A union with B. But we also have another operation that will be very much at work in maths, and that is multiplication. When we multiply, something amazing happens, because we go a lot faster than any other time, and I'm going to prove that to you with numbers. But before that, allow me to do it here, to establish the third entity that is born between you and me, because out of a casual encounter, nothing really happens. It's just a hello with a hello, and that's it. It's someone that you meet standing on a queue, and simply you say hi, and the other person says hi, and that's the end of it. No more interaction. But at one stage, there was a bit of a union there by sharing a hi, hello, how are you, and not even asking for that. It's just simply a hello that brings another hello back. But when we interact a little bit more, something amazing happens. This is the multiplication. Have a look. If I take the A, and now I multiply it times B, I form something amazing. BA, B, and C. And the C is the relationship that we just established. It's something common to you and me. And that could be called a friendship, that could be called a professional relationship, that could be called a marriage, depending on the level of commitment. Now have a look at how nature uses this. Because when A intersects with B, we form a structure that is called the vesica Piscis. And this becomes a seed because it can be multiplied. And the Bible tells us about multiplication of the breads and the fish and everything else. And it's about the seed of life. In fact, we as men, we basically allow ourselves to expand our influence in this world by having a family, by having kids with the seed of life. And the seed of life has that shape. If you take that shape, which is like that, it looks like any seed in any citrus fruit, in apricots, in kernels. You can look at oranges, you can look at also mandarins and grapefruit, and any fruit you want is got a seed in the middle. And that seed is either round like that of an avocado, which is a complete sphere, or you can find it in the shape of